Hey, everybody, welcome to Tony's Time, NFL style, week 3 NFL insight breakdown with my good buddy, Arun Shiva, and that is Indian Cowboy, better known. And Arun, I'm feeling a little bit, I'm kind of feeling like a guy on the side of the curb with a cup in my hand. You got the tie on, the glasses. You're all serious today. This is supposed to be a laid back show, brother. What's going on?
Look on the bright side, man. We vibed so well. We both wore blue. We were just meant to do this together, you know?
There
Like we
you
didn't even like pre-call. We didn't call each other and tell each other, what we're gonna wear or whatever. We just kind of vibe.
Yeah, there you go. Well, a couple guys sitting around a sports bar having a beer, just shooting the breeze about the NFL and what we think about this upcoming weekend. An interesting weekend last weekend in the NFL. Obviously, there's always some surprises and a game I want to talk about where there are a lot of surprises in right off the bat here, and that will be the San Francisco 49ers. Arun, they are a triage unit. That is a MASH unit in San Francisco. Never went home. Stayed at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, kind of a golf resort area. And let me tell you, Thomas, Bosa, Ford, Sherman, these guys helped them get to the Super Bowl last year. They're not on the field. You got a banged up quarterback. You got a running back that's really good with an MCL strain. Quarterback that's 50-50. Kittles is still questionable to play. I think he's flying to meet the team on Thursday. Interesting, still laying 4 points in the Meadowlands. And I guess my question to you is, with all the complaints, especially from the head coach, about the field conditions, although the Giants and the Steelers had played there on Monday night previously with no problems, the little trepidation by these players going back to this field, not going home. Is it too much to ask for the team that was in the Super Bowl last year, minus a ton of superstars, to lay 4 points on the road again this week against the New York Giants?
No, because it's the Giants, and it's like what's so what's so great about these Niners, man, that coaching staff is extremely good. Between Shanahan and Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator. Remember, McCullen is a good quarterback, and this team always steps up, especially with injuries. And he kind of reminds me of a young Andy Reid in that he can take anybody and plug them into a system, and same with Belichick, and then they would be good. And like there's a running back, McKinnon. McKinnon's going to ball out this week now that Mostert's out. That system is just good. And that's how you have so many coaches that draft really, really well. We're like, oh, man, they draft so well. Remember, Terrell Davis, right? They're like, man, they draft so well. How did they find him? Blah, blah, blah. It's not that they found him. It's that their system is really good. And they find guys, everybody in the first 4 or 5 rounds are pretty competent. So, and then if you have a good offensive lineman, it's really not going to matter if it's a 4.4 speed or a 4.5 speed if the hole is big enough. You know what I mean? So I feel like the coaching staff is so good for San Fran that they're going to figure it out. This might be one of the best. I have a theory, Tony. My theory is that when star players are out, the team without the stars for the first game or two, they ball out. Like the Bulls, when Jordan didn't play, the Bulls covered 82% of the time historically.
Yeah.
When Jordan didn't play. So,
Yeah.
because when the star player's out, everybody's more focused. There's more juice in practice. Everybody's going to get to play. You don't know when you'll get to play again. It's your time to show what you can do to other teams who might check you out. So I think the focus is going to be there for the Niners. And plus the Giants, man, they have so many injuries. Barkley's out now, and they got a couple of random guys playing running back, and Freeman might get a shot too. Like I just trust the San Francisco culture better. But I do think Judge is a great coach. Don't get me wrong. He'll turn it around. But I just trust the culture in San Fran more.
Yeah, Judge kind of got handed a giant flaming turd, and he's going to have to do something with it and lose. And Shepard's out too for them this week, which is a little bit of a concern. Another game up. Matter of fact, there's 3 games up in the New England Northeast area that I wanted to touch on this week, and one of them would be, I think, going to be one of the better games of the weekend, and we're going to find out a lot about both these teams, and that would be the Rams and the Bills. I think the Bills are expertly coached. I think that Allen, I thought last year he was a good quarterback. He makes mistakes. He hasn't made so many this year, but he made mistakes last year. But he kept him around in ball games. He can move the chains on third down with his legs. He reminds me of a poor man's Alex Smith. He can take off and run it. He can make some things happen. He's got good field vision. He's got some players around him. They are decimated at linebacker, which is going to be a problem for them if LA likes to run the football this week. But the Rams decided, unlike San Francisco, to fly back home and fly back out to the East Coast again, where they played in Philadelphia last week and looked damn good doing it. Of course, anybody's going to look that good if you let the quarterback stand in the pocket for 7 or 8 seconds and throw the ball uncontested. I think the Bills are expertly coached. I think they've got some players around them. I think Allen does. I think defensively they're good, although they're hurting at linebacker this week. On the road here, total 47.5. Bills are laying 2.5 against the Rams. There's going to be a lot of people. I know pros versus Joes maybe, but there's going to be a lot of the public on the Rams here. They've looked pretty good the first couple of weeks.
No, that's accurate because most of the public right now, it's about roughly a 60-40 split depending on where you look. Most of the public are taking the Rams because they're more proven than the Bills are. But you're right about Josh Allen. He went, again, 4 touchdowns, no picks in Miami. He's not making mistakes. That draft pick looks pretty good. I mean, they look like they hit the nail on the head with this guy. It's so funny because he looks better than Wentz, doesn't he? It looks like Josh Allen is the better quarterback. And it's like blasphemous to say, but I think he looks better than Wentz. And, we're going to learn a lot about the Eagles too. The Eagles had 8 sacks in the beginning, and then they made sure they got a couple of offensive linemen back. And then, Wentz didn't get sacked at all his last game. But the Rams are funny, man. I'll tell you something about the guy from our neck of the woods, McVay. He is a really, really good coach because every game plan is slightly different than the previous game plan. He doesn't he makes it so that it's he reminds me of what Belichick used to do. Belichick one time passed 12 straight plays and everybody thought they were going to run. And then one time decided to run 12 straight times when everybody thought he was going to pass. He will just do stuff randomly with game plans and you can't get a beat on him. But to be honest with you, who is better here? We're going to learn a lot about the Dolphins too. And I know we're going to talk about the Thursday night game too, because Dolphins played lights out. The Dolphins played lights out in that game. Fitzpatrick was really good. They were only 3 for 5 from the red zone, but if you take that away, they would have beaten the Bills. So I think the Dolphins are sneaky getting better too, by the way. And I really want to talk about them. But who do you like here, Tony, more than anything else? I'll tell you this. I trust the Bills defense more. But there's something about these Rams. For me, it's a no pick. But there's something about these Rams that I didn't think they were good. Remember, the Eagles were favored against the Rams. The Eagles are expected to win that game, and the Rams just, they just got outcoached. So this is, and here's the other thing too. If the Bills end up winning this game, they start the season 3-0. So that looks really, really good. So it looks like the Bills. Remember, this team, could have gone to the AFC Championships as well. You know what I mean? They have a lot of talent too. So I think it's finally come together. I think they finally win the division. And at the end of the day, if I had to choose, I'll take the Bills because first of all, it's a good public fade. Second of all, I think the Rams, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, if you tell, and the Bills' strength is their defensive backs. So I think whereas the Bills, I think can hurt you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, in this game here, the total's 47.5, 48. I like the under in this game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring. I think the defenses are going to play a bigger role than the offenses in this game. I think the safe bet in this one here, because I think it's a coin flip side. I really do. If this was a normal season and the stands were full, I would be all over the Bills because they have a huge home field advantage up there. I've been to a game up there in the past, and it's a great fan base. Smaller, they're right on top of you. It's just old school, and that home field advantage is taken away from them. But I think that the Bills' defense is going to limit what they can do. Goff can do down the field. It's going to be the best secondary he's seen all year. I mean, Philadelphia doesn't have a secondary, doesn't have a pass rush, and the Cowboys don't have a secondary. You saw Matty Ice Ryan lighting them up like a Christmas tree last week. So this is going to be a little bit of a defensive scheme that Goff hasn't seen. And, of course, who's going to complain and say anything bad about the defensive line of the Los Angeles Rams? It's about as good as you can get with Donald in there. So I would lean 47.5 here. And you brought up the Dolphins. Let's talk about the Thursday night game. Jaguars, again, rise from the ashes and give Tennessee all they want towards the end of the game. And the Jaguars are a team that they've played two teams basically that let them hang around, and two good teams, for lack of a better term. I think the Colts are a lot better than they probably shouldn't have lost that game. They out-yarded them by 200 and some yards. But at the end of the day, the Dolphins played well last week. Buffalo had momentum going into the halftime there. And, of course, then they had the weather delay, which I think helped Miami because they were back on their heels going into the locker room. And they came out, and matter of fact, I put out a halftime line on Twitter with Bills only laying 1 point. I thought, well, more of the same. Then kind of the delay, and 45 minutes later, they take the field, and the Dolphins play lights out in the second half. And maybe even in that loss, they're carrying momentum in here to Jacksonville because they're catching 3 points on the road here on Thursday night.
Yeah, and after throwing a couple interceptions, 3 interceptions against the Patriots, Fitzmagic had 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. He played pretty well. And, the Bills are actually getting, or I should say the Dolphins are getting pretty good production from Gaskin, right? He's got 46 yards rushing. He's actually, I thought Breda and that young Jordan Howard who's going to get the main number of carries, but it's Gaskin who I think they're fond of. And they're giving him a lot of touches. I think he got 7 touches in rushing and 6 catching. So you for a guy to get 13 touches it's pretty impressive, I guess. But first of all, the Jaguars are interesting because they came all the way back in that Titans game. They were down big, but they showed a lot of character. James Robinson rushed the ball really well. And you know what? I got to be honest. I'm impressed with Minshew. They're not winning games, but he kind of reminds me of a Doug Flutie type of guy. They can be in any type of game at any point. But I think the Dolphins catching 3, I actually like the Dolphins catching the points here. I think everybody's going to be on Minshew. But I think the Dolphins are playing pretty well right now. I think the fact that they only lost by 10 points and nearly beat the Patriots says something about them because the Patriots almost, went on the road and nearly beat the Seahawks. They were 1 foot away from beating the Seahawks. So that shows that they were pretty good. And look at who the Dolphins have faced, right? They faced the Bills, who could go up to the AFC Championship. They faced opening week the Patriots. So I think this is the easiest team they've played all year as well. So I actually lean on the Dolphins here catching the points.
The one thing I noticed about the Dolphins last year, and it was a miserable year last year, but they never gave up. Matter of fact, don't forget they beat New England when New England needed the win to get a bye in the playoffs last year, and they beat them in Foxborough. So that
that's because Coach Flores used to be in that coaching staff, and he knows Bill B well, and what scheme he's running. So they definitely got some inside info.
Yeah, and if Fitzmagic doesn't throw the interception with 4 minutes left in the game in week 1, in the end zone when they're down there on the 17-yard line or whatever it was against New England, they would have covered that spread. Against mighty New England. So, you're leaning Dolphins there on Thursday night. I'm debating whether to put a pick out on that, and I'll leave that one alone. Speaking of that, let's talk about, we're going to stay in the Northeast again. Lots of fanfare, lots of excitement here in Las Vegas on Monday with the Raiders opening up their stadium with nobody in it, but nonetheless, opening up Allegiant Stadium and a big win over a Drew Brees-led Saints team. And now they take to the road again, second East Coast trip in 3 weeks to take on the Patriots. I guess I want to get your thoughts on a couple things in this game. Number one is your thoughts on how Cam Newton is fitting in with McDaniels and the Belichick system there. Your thoughts after 2 weeks. They are 1-1. ended up on about the 2-yard line on Sunday Night Football, away from getting a win. But at the end of the day here, your thoughts on him and your overall thoughts on this game. Obviously, I think that Gruden has established the fact that he wants to pound the rock and throw to possession receivers and utilize his tight end a lot. Sounds kind of familiar, Arun, because that's exactly what Bill Belichick likes to do. So not really contrasting styles here, but actually similar styles offensively right now. Of course, they do run Cam Newton, but the coaching philosophy is run the ball, possession receivers, drag routes, utilize the tight end, and play tough defense. And so these two clash, and I know that John Gruden does not have great memories going into Foxborough over the years, but at the end of the day here, Patriots 6.5, total 48 in this one.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things here. First of all, this is going to be blasphemous to say too, but doesn't it look like Cam Newton's a better quarterback than Tom Brady right now?
Yeah.
And I think the coaching staff in New England is so happy to have Cam Newton because now they got a guy who can run outside the pocket, who can extend plays. And I think Josh McDaniels is like in love with Cam Newton because they can actually do so much stuff. Yeah, Cam misses the throw here and there, but what he makes up with his legs and extending the play, I think is important. Plus, if James White, unfortunately, his parents, obviously, his dad had passed away from that car accident and his mom was in critical condition, last I heard. I believe if he was in that game, I think that game would have a different look because they only rushed for 60 yards. And, and they were only 1 foot away from that game. And at the end of the day, Cam threw for 400 yards, basically. Okay. So he just threw, I mean, this is a guy who people thought was washed out, just threw for 400 yards. Do you know that there was a tweet, man, it's so funny. AJ McCarron makes more money than Cam Newton. Like there's so many guys who make so much more money than Cam Newton. Like the steal that these Patriots got, but Cam really wants a title and he really wants relevancy. And between Edelman and Harry, he's now got a pair of receivers that he can rely on. And they literally played arguably the best team in the league in Seattle on the road. And they took him down the wire, and he was 3 for 5 from the red zone. But, if they have that running game, I think they win that game. Remember how many guys they're missing too. They're missing 5 defensive starters because of COVID. If they have those guys along with Cam, I think they probably win it. But as far as this game's concerned, I think Vegas might have a letdown, right? I think Drew Brees has something's up with Drew, man. It's something's up because he's thrown for less than 200 yards now, back-to-back games. I know without Michael Thomas it can be hard and stuff, but the old Drew Brees, when Michael Thomas was out, they still slung the ball around. You know what I mean? So this offense is not clicking at all. Vegas looked really good, obviously, but I think the Patriots defense will have a bounce back. I think they just gave up 35 points. They'll be much sharper. I think Derek Carr is no Russell Wilson, right?
No.
And I think they're going So I think they're going to have a letdown, and I think the Patriots are going to do well as they come off a loss as well.
Yeah, I think Carr has played better this year. I think his back was against the wall, and as you alluded to in the first show we did, I thought it was a good move by Gruden to get Mariota in there to kind of light a fire under his ass a little bit. I also think they're able to depend on the running game a little bit more this year than they were last year. They've made some changes up front there, and they played well the other night, even without their best offensive lineman against the Saints. And, well, let's just get to it right now. And I do think it's very difficult to go against a Bill Belichick coach team off a loss at home the following week against a team that was a 6-point underdog that kind of didn't really shock me. I had the Raiders. Because I think Drew Brees' game is down. I think the Saints' offense is a mess right now. Even with the running back that they have, which is all world. But at the end of the day, here let's talk about let's talk a little bit about the Saints this week because they are taking on the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Well, I'll tell you one thing. While Drew Brees' performances have been in question, Aaron Rodgers haven't. he has looked as good as he's looked, the years they were going to the NFC Championship. They got a little bang up there at wide receiver right now for Green Bay. I haven't really seen them establish the run like they should, but they have blown people out. But bear in mind, they played Minnesota, who's terrible, and they played Detroit, who's terrible. This is definitely a better caliber of opponent, and in a team that even without the crowd, Arun, plays very well down in the Dome in New Orleans here. And but I'm with you. I'm a little concerned. I don't even know what the hell's going on with their offense. Drew Brees had 160 yards throwing against Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay's terrible, especially on the defense. Tampa Bay wouldn't have won last week if Bridgewater wouldn't give them 3 turnovers inside the 30-yard line. They got outgained last week by 100 yards. But this is an interesting game because a lot of people thought that the Green Bay Packers should be favored, and yet they find themselves a 3-point underdog right now against a team that, quite frankly, on Monday Night Football looked a little lost on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. Do you know how Tyrod Taylor got benched? The doctor for the Chargers did a procedure and punctured his lung accidentally. And that's how Justin Herbert got into the game. And he played phenomenal. Okay. And I mention that because I think this is the last time that Tyrod Taylor might play for a while, because I don't see Herbert coming off the field. It kind of reminds me of that Bledsoe Brady moment there. And it's kind of one of those moments because I see Taysom Hill. Maybe the Saints will have a punctured lung for Drew Brees and be like, oh, Hill's going to start because Drew got injured during warmups or something. Because I think they want something weird to happen so that Hill looks good, man. And he knows that offense inside and out. And that's why, you have a coach in New Orleans and Peyton who let Bridgewater go, but he kept Hill, right? Because and they kind of shored up his contract to make sure he stayed on. So the Saints have covered this game the last 3 times they've played. It's odd to see the Packers as an underdog given how awesome, including another 40-point game that they've had. And by the way, how good does that Jordan Love draft pick look now? It looks great because it lit a fire into Aaron Rodgers. So now Aaron's like, all right, well, I'll show you. And then he's balling out back-to-back games. So, I do think Michael Thomas is going to try to play. And I think Sean Payton understands the importance of this game. And as a Falcons fan, it kills me about the Cowboys game because the Saints suck right now. The Bucks suck right now. And the Panthers suck right now. So if we win that game, we're 1-1 and we're kind of in the middle of things. And it's so sad that we couldn't win that game. But as far as this game is concerned, I kind of lean on the under a little bit. Just because I think the Saints can only rely on their defense because they can't rely on their offense right now. And I think the Packers, their defense is suspect after that horrible Lions game and their horrible Vikings game. I know they've won both games, but obviously when you're a defensive coordinator and you've given up 34 points to Minnesota and 21 to Detroit, and that was a quick 21. It wasn't like a 21 that came later on in garbage time. They got down early in that game. They were struggling in that game before the Packers had to come back. So I think the defensive coordinator is going to have something to prove here too. So I kind of lean on the under a little bit here.
Well, we're going to go steak and a beer on this one because I'm going to go over. I think for the very reasons that you just stated on the Green Bay defense, this is a game that the New Orleans offense could get healthy on if they execute.
True.
And I think that they can exploit what I think it's not an overrated defense, but I think they can exploit a less than average defense here. And this is a game maybe Drew Brees gets healthy on. There's a lot of people calling into question his age now, at 42 years old or whatever it is, 41, 42 years old. And so I'm going to take the over in this one for a steak and a beer. So this is our first online bet since we started the show.
And you know how much I love public fades. You know what I mean? And but the public has been right on a lot of stuff. The public was right on the Packers last week. 75% of the public was against minus the 6 and they covered. So, but this is a Sunday night game or a Monday night game? Yeah, Sunday night game. So it's a decent public fade. So yeah, I'll take the fade. But I can totally see Brees not having his 3rd straight horrible game. And at some point he's going to have to bust out because the boo birds are starting to come out. So,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what right now, a couple of things. I want to make a couple quick comments, then we're going to talk briefly about the best game of the week, which on Monday Night Football will let you go. First of all, I know that Arun is a big Falcons fan. Hopefully you can go down there and talk to the special teams coach about the rules of an onside kick. You don't wait for it to come to you. You come to it. You don't let the other opposing players come in. Dallas was gifted a game last week by courtesy of the Atlanta Falcons, which is a little bit sad. And they got the Bears on deck, and I think Atlanta might come out of their shell this week. I'm going to let that one alone. The other thing I want everybody watching to know is above our beautiful heads there is get a free $60 account from Doc Sports. Be sure and click on the link in the description below and come over and get yourself hooked up this weekend in the NFL. I had a 4-1 week last week, and I got a top play this week, so I'm looking forward. I think week 3 provides more opportunity from a point spread perspective, side, total, teaser, and money line wagers than weeks 1 and 2 combined. So it's going to be a good week 3. I know myself, and I know IC will have some good stuff for you as well. We would be remiss in our duties, Arun, if we did not talk about the biggest, most exciting game of the week, and that is the number 1 and number 2 teams, power rating wise, at most places in the NFL. Seattle, a very close third, as you mentioned. But the Kansas City Chiefs, my beloved hometown team, Kansas City Chiefs, on the road catching 3.5 against the Ravens, a team they beat last year in Kansas City, although Baltimore had a very dramatic comeback in that game. Kansas City kind of blew a big lead and hung on here. Total 53.5. Are we going to see a fireworks show on Monday night? Kansas City, I don't know what happened to them last week, a dramatic win against the Chargers. Maybe they were looking ahead a little bit and took the Chargers for granted, which I think could be the case because Kansas City's a lot better team than what they showed last week. And the Ravens have played as good as anybody in the NFL. Ravens and Seattle are the 2 teams that have played as good in the NFL as any team through the first 2 weeks, albeit maybe not the stiffest of competition for Baltimore. Your thoughts on this game quickly?
Well, the Ravens are 8-2 in their last 10 ATS.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs are 1-1 in their last 10. And that was the first non-cover they had. So you got two heavily, you have 2 teams that have been covering in such a consistent pace. I do want to point out that the Chiefs will play the Patriots next as well. So they got a nice gauntlet coming up here. But I don't think Lamar Jackson is as intimidated with Patrick Mahomes as he was last year. I think he kind of looked up to him in almost like a star, like he was looking at some celebrity. And you can kind of see that in the post game. And you can't go into the mentality like, oh man, I'm just here to show up and do relatively well. You need to show up like I'm here to beat you. You know what I mean? And I felt like in the past, Lamar might have been looking to just be like, well, I'm just here to play my role and give you the trophy because you're the chosen one, But I think in this game, he feels like now he's been on the mat and cover a little bit. I think he feels like he has a shot in this game. And, the total is interesting because it's only 1 or 2 points more than the Saints-Packers total. And it's interesting that the Ravens are the ones that are favored, right? When have you seen the Chiefs as an underdog? It's been a while. And it's interesting what the line is. It's 3.5. So, and it's not 3. So, which makes me think that it's almost like a bait. Hey, I'll give you a field goal. And I think the Ravens want to prove something here. And, it's always the hunter versus the hunted, And I think the Chiefs in the past were the hunter because they wanted to show what they can do. And Andy Reid wanted to win his first title and they wanted to dethrone the Patriots and blah, blah, blah. But I think now it's the Ravens that are hunting, So I actually small lean on the Ravens here. I do think the Chiefs will play better than last week. But the Chiefs, and I know you love your Chiefs. So, but I do think there's going to be a lot of energy for the Ravens. This is going to sound weird, but we're going to see how smart Lamar is here. Because what teams do is they play normal, and then in a really important game, they really switch up a lot of stuff on him, which is what he had trouble with last year against the Titans. Like they will just show all sorts of crazy stuff. They'll save that for the playoffs, So that's why they're like, oh, he's amazing, he's doing great, and that's fine. But no one's going to show you their hand. They're going to show it to you in the playoffs. So I don't know how much the Chiefs are going to show here, but they'll do a couple different things to try to throw them off. But I'll have to lean on the Ravens just because they got the revenge and the juice.
Yeah, it was a 1-2 race last year for the league MVP, and Patrick Mahomes won it. And he also won a Super Bowl. I think Lamar Jackson wants to make a point. I don't know if he can. I know one thing: don't put a lot of stock into what you saw in Kansas City last week. We all know now they have a phenomenal field goal kicker. I can tell you that much. The Chiefs do. But this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out game. And I was looking at some of the money in Vegas right now. 66% of the money on the spread is on the Kansas City Chiefs. And, sharps are going to hit Kansas City because of the hook on the 3, on a fall number. The money line, 97% of the money on the money line right now is on Kansas City. And the over and under, Arun, 98% of the right now is on the over in this game. And I would expect to see both teams in the mid to high 20s.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm going to do when I see that kind of numbers. I'm going to put a couple bills on the under. I mean, I've just got to be that guy. If everybody and their mom is on something, I've just got to take the other side just for a couple of bills, because I've always believed long term it kind of works out in your favor. But yeah, I think, don't you find that 3.5 interesting?
I find it very interesting. And that's where I'm going to leave the 3.5, because I'm going to have a pretty strong, significant pick in this game on Monday Night Football. So I'll just leave it at that. He's Indian Cowboy, Arun Shiva, and he is one of the big shots over at DocSports.com. Always my pleasure to have him on, even if he's wearing a tie. And, of course, be sure and come over and see us at DocSports.com. Get your free $60 account. Get yourself hooked up this weekend with some football, and thanks for tuning in.